Un-Alived. The young gangster looked auspiciously around and tightly squeezed the grip of his new pistol. It was a particle beam gun he nicked off the corpse of a not-so-lucky chum, and it was still sticky with said chum's hot orange blood. That was the nature of this place. 1 star minute, you were alive and mashing your victim's face in the floor plating. The next, you yourself were lying there instead, and very much unalived. The ex-mining asteroid base MGZ-34, or how it was better known amongst the local criminal contingent, the Cold Pocket, was home to many a gang. And sadly, the more the galactic years dragged on, the more fresh bodies had accumulated in its damp tunnels full of the now useless, scrapped mining equipment. He was gangless as of today, ditched by his oh so tough and soon to be great and on top of all things buddies. The young man decided to hide in one of the side tunnels and jumped the first fool that passed by. How hard could this even be? You could just wave your gun menacingly and demand all the stuff that they had, like ducats, spare weapons, clothes, and then profit. Soon his patient waiting was rewarded by the unnerving presence of 2 tall, gray-cloaked men, who, despite their surroundings, moved towards him at a leisure, casual pace. At first glance, none of them seemed to pay any heed. At second glance, too, the young would-be robber was perplexed. But that was just for a bit. Perhaps, he thought, they were some peace-loving idiots, tourists even, who, despite all the warnings, decided to visit the pocket. Even better, he said to himself. I won't share their stuff with nobody else. The two moved even closer, when suddenly a gang, which he instantly recognized his old buddies, jumped them. He was about to move in too, when something, perhaps his long-forgotten, deeply asleep sense of self-preservation, made the young man stay concealed in the shadows. His old gang consisted of 10 vicious criminals who, that was what they claimed at least, were on death rows in 6 different star systems. They waved their guns menacingly, just as he intended to do himself, by the way, and quickly surrounded the 2 men. All right, you Fruit Loops, give it up, all of it. I want the decats, guns, all your valuables on the ground now. His boss, of course, had the biggest gun and repeatedly stuffed its nozzle in each of their faces, trying to look as scary and intimidating as possible as he could, while the rest of his gang started laughing and cussing, mocking the soon-to-be victims. He heard a loud sigh come from the shorter man as he looked around visibly with increased annoyance, and then complained to the other. We gotta be inconspicuous, he said. No weapons, you said. We won't even need any, you say. This is the first and last time I ever listened to you. For the 49th fucking time, I consider this place to be another club's territory. We must show proper respect, and therefore will negotiate our way in and out, not enter, kick in the door style, all guns a-blazing. I can't even believe that it's me who has to say this, but we must walk softly here. Are you bloodthirsty government hitman? Obviously, I'm not going to go and destroy the entire station, you fool. Certainly, you are not implying that anyone would ever notice these idiots' absence. Besides, disruptor leaves barely any trace whatsoever. It was a scene that the young bandit would never have imagined being witness of. Both men completely ignored the gang who surrounded them and had multiple weapons trained on their heads. Still, they did it almost naturally, in a fashion most insouciant. So much so that his ex-boss's face had changed colors a couple of times already, all the while his supposed victims exchanged pleasantries. Hey, you don't get it, do you? You're all surrounded like. We got all the guns. If y'all don't want to do what we say, you get yourselves killed, see? Give me the... The boss wasn't able to finish his last words because he suddenly felt shortness of breath. No, he and everyone else in his ex-gangs were literally suffocating. The young bandit watched, flabbergasted, while one of the two men, the one that was called the government lapcat, closed his fingers, forming a fist. For a few short, terrible seconds, he could only hear the agonizing wrestling of his old gang, their arms and legs flapping against the floor, mouths helplessly gasping for air. Air that the telepath had denied them. The young man was looking at death. He was but a dozen feet away from his would-be killer, though the end, strangely enough, never came. Instead, the second man turned around, his eyes covered with a pair of strange goggles, waved him to come closer. It was an order that suffered no refusal, and he stumbled, legs all shaky, out of the now useless shadows. Look at him. Just look. How dare you whine and moan about your precious disruptor when the wimpy fox can't even stand straight? The taller man poked his chest with a meaty finger, and he heard a loud snapping sound. He tripped over his own legs and fell immediately to the ground. His head smacked hard at the floor plating. The young gangster's chest felt like he was stabbed by a piece of megasteel rebar, and most definitely had broken some ribs. Coughing blood, the unfortunate fellow barely managed to pick himself from the floor and again stood up, now facing the steely-eyed gaze of the second man. He pissed his pants. The telepath had no eyes, but pits of molten fire, and reflected within them he saw the plains of hell itself. See? Stand up straight when I'm talking to you, Tossa. Yeah, straighten up your back legs. Legs apart, so you have a more stable stance. And what's that gun? Switch off the safety lever, you dumb fuck. How could you rob somebody, anybody like that? What if we need to shoot him dead, eh? The blurry man corrected his stance, personally switched off the safety of his pistol, and then shoved it back into his sweaty, trembling hands. The second man knelt, and after curiously looking at, reached for one of his now dead gangster friend's handgun. Oh, no, you didn't. Keep your grimy government claws away from these guns. Both of them walked away, still loudly arguing, leaving him alone at the corridor intersection, warm piss forming a small puddle beside his leg. Some minutes later he was still holding his gun, when a couple of new faces emerged from one of the other corridors. They saw him, and their eyes sparked. Suddenly he realized that all around him on the floor rolled the corpses of 10 gangsters. Despite the sticky dampness that he felt and unease from looking deep into the telepath's eyes, the young criminal was still that, a criminal. Seizing the moment, he quickly turned around and screamed at the approaching new bloods. Who wants to join my gang? This was a short promo excerpt from the third book, Trends of Vengeance. If you've enjoyed this telling, then consider supporting the Black Knight, also known as Aragmar, on Minds.com, by supporting him directly on Patreon or purchasing his books on Amazon. Links in the description below. Also consider supporting my channel, as I am still trying to grow, by subscribing, commenting, and thumbs up. I can also be found on Minds, YouTube, and BitChute. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and farewell.